Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Halo Hartume Wash Processed Ethiopia from Langora Kaffe. And there's the bag right there. And Langora Kaffe, based out of Stjørdal, Norway, and this is their third time appearing on this channel actually, as we did review a couple of their coffees last year during Cafe Box's Advent Calendar series. And on that note, we must address the very sad and unfortunate news that we're going to have to cancel this year's Advent Calendar review series, as it is currently December 12th and we still have not received our Advent Calendar. The earliest we can receive it would be tomorrow, December 13th, and the earliest we'd be able to put out our first review would be December 14th. And at that point, we're already 2 weeks behind in the review series, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of point in releasing those reviews, as so many people would have already gone through so much of their coffee. And also, it's going to conflict with a lot of other videos that we had planned for the end of the year. It would carry us all the way through the beginning of January. So sadly, with huge regret, we're going to have to cancel this year's Advent Calendar series. And can't emphasize our disappointment enough with this one, as last year it was a huge kind of starting point for our channel, as we were super small last year, and after the Advent Calendar series we were starting to see some pretty nice growth to the channel. So it is what it is, unfortunate situation. Let's discuss the coffee we're here to discuss today, which is this Washed Ethiopia from Langora Kaffe. Now, Langora Kaffe, I'll be completely honest, I don't remember the coffees that we reviewed from them last year too well, but as soon as I found out that a local coffee shop was going to be carrying their coffees, I got super excited about that prospect, as I very much wanted to review a full bag of their coffee, kind of get a little bit more in-depth experience with their coffee. And there's some really positives I like about the bag, and I always like to emphasize those. Everything here is in Scandinavian, it's in Norwegian, so there's no English on this bag anywhere. Bags are a little interesting, the designs on them are kind of fun, but yeah, just wanted to touch on that real quick. But let's start discussing the coffee, as this right here is day 27. And recipe we settled on was a 16:1 water to coffee ratio brewed at 203 degrees Fahrenheit, 95 degrees Celsius through the V60, and they are a light Nordic for the roast profile. And let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. So day 14, which was our, I actually don't have the tasting wheel pulled up. Let me pull that up. All right, day 14, which was our first time trying this coffee, and standard recipe through the V60, and the only thing really worth noting was the fact that it was super clean. It was a nice break from those really wild coffees we had been having, most specifically those Ilse coffees. Lighter bodied, delicate, floral, not too much worth noting on this day, pretty straightforward, what you would expect from a lighter profiled Washed Ethiopia. Day 15 ran it through the Chemex, and there's a slight bit more to pick out, including a pretty nice soft stone fruit that was in the cup. Given that the flavor notes listed on here are all in Norwegian, I think the only thing you can kind of pull out is citrus and floral. Didn't go above and beyond to see what they had listed on their website, as for the most part it shouldn't make that much of a difference. Tasting notes are only a guide rather than a specific indication of what you should be expecting. A little bit more apricots than peach, but it is a more distinguished component to this coffee as it cools down, so much more pronounced at that point. Better experience on day 15. Day 17, the florals are pronounced yet moderately delicate, acting as the secondary factor to what was a fair bit of citrus in this cup at this time, and even a slight stone fruit. Moderate acidity, pretty solid cup overall all around at this point, and that's the best kind of overall first impression I had from these first couple of days. Was it was solid, if a little bit unspectacular, and kind of assumed that I needed to figure out what I was doing wrong, and with a lot of these Nordic coffees it's pretty good to up the temperature, so that's what we tried, as well as the ratio through the V60, and it was weirdly more vegetal, so I didn't like it this way. The florals were not quite as crisp and clean, while the fair bit of citric acidity was coming through even stronger on this time. Not the biggest fan of the acidity, so wasn't necessarily loving it as much this way. Was going to adjust back on the recipe. Lowered the temperatures all the way down to 203 degrees Fahrenheit, 95 Celsius, and that's when I was experiencing the best from this cup of coffee, as it finally hit a really nice stride. It could have been the fact that we had finally reached that 3-week point, and could definitely pull out a lot more of those clean fruits, as there was definitely a little bit more of that citrus, which at this point I would probably describe most closely with a kind of candied orange. A little sweet, pretty nice. Even an apricot in the finish, and some clean florals, which at this point I would describe as maybe some more on the purple side of florals. I think they have jasmine listed on here. Would make a lot of sense. Pretty great overall. Day 23 ran it through the Chemex to see if I could get some similar results, and this is when I decided that the coffee was a lot better through the V60. The Chemex was stripping away a lot of those really pretty sweeter components that was coming from this cup of coffee, so not too much worth noting, just that we were going to go back to the V60. And day 25, when gone back through the V60, consistent in that sense that it was by far the best cup I'd experienced. Lower temperatures, Still that 16:1 ratio, and I think it would be good at even, higher ratioed coffees. So 15:1 would probably still make it pretty good, as you get a lot of those really nice flavors that are coming from this cup. Again, best descriptor, that candy orange, definitely pronounced on this day, with a slight apricot nutty finish in the cup. Finish is really nice. I think it's the best part of this cup of coffee, actually. It's got a wonderful finish. Rich purple florals and an overall light-bodied, light-profiled cup of coffee. Pretty good experience. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And we have a lot of level 4s, so let's go through them all real quick. Cleanliness, level 4. Yeah, this is a pretty clean cup of coffee, not too surprising. Finish, level 4, we touched on that briefly. I think it's the best part of this coffee. It's got a pretty nice lasting finish too, and it's a really pretty finish, so that's why I'm really liking the finish on this cup of coffee. Sweetness, level 4. I think as it cools down, the sweetness does increase quite a bit, as it's definitely more justified onto level 4 right now than when it is a little bit warmer, and I think I was pushing it at that level 4. It's probably on the lower side of that level 4 when it's a little warmer, but as it cools down, definitely justified there. Florals, level 4, yeah, definitely pretty floral cup of coffee as you would expect. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it's a Yirgacheffe. And then citrus fruit, level 4. And the citrus is great. It's actually one of the more enjoyable citrus cups I've had. And then the stone fruit, probably being a little generous, pushing it all the way up to a level 4, as there were times where it was the most pronounced fruit component in this cup of coffee, but now I think it's a little less pronounced, but I still think level 4 is okay for it. Lighter bodied, level 2, as you'd expect. Acidity, level 3, moderate, but I think at times you might even be able to push that up to a level 4. I think it was a little bit more in moderation for me, especially when the temperatures were lowered. So overall, I like the way that this tasting wheel looks. I think it's a pretty good representation. All right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. So if you've been following this channel for a while, then you saw that in early October, we reviewed a series of lighter profiled washed Ethiopian coffees. I think we had one from Fried Hats and one from Luna. And then there was the Coffee Collective, which was my favorite of those 3 coffees. And I think this one's almost as good as that Coffee Collective coffee. I liked it better than the Fried Hats or the Luna coffee. I think it's a pretty nice cup of coffee. I think this is a great introduction to a full bag experience of Langora's coffees, as I think that they're really good. I really want to try some more of their coffees any opportunity I get. It's kind of sad. I think they had 2 natural processed Ethiopias in that advent calendar, so it would have been great to review those coffees. I think I'm getting a pretty solid impression of Langora Kaffe at this point, and I think their coffees are really good. They're exactly what you'd expect from a Nordic coffee roaster. Now, this wasn't anything that blew me away, but if you're meeting my expectations, especially for a coffee that I have high expectations going into, then I think you're doing a really good job, and I think it actually slightly exceeded my expectations. So I really enjoyed this coffee quite a bit. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. I mean, this is a really easy review, and it's a really straightforward recommend as well. Lighter profiled coffees, think as classic Nordic Ethiopia as you could imagine. Got the slight bit of acidity. It's also got the higher florals, nice soft fruits in the cup, as well as a pretty clean experience overall. I mean, it's a washed Ethiopia. But I think I'm going to leave this review at that. If you've by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, or if you tried the advent calendar and got to try both of those Langora natural processed Ethiopias, we'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of them, or it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Halo Hartume wash processed Ethiopia from Langora Kaffe. Thank you for watching.